Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the reconciliation of opposites, which should be interesting. We're talking about paradigm shifts and transformation. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together, very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, that tickling, the tingling. Allow that sensation to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a new week. And I've been doing a lot of thinking, going through a lot of clearing. So, and it made me start thinking of paradox. I was thinking of calling this morning holding paradox rather than reconciliation of opposites, but it all comes down to the same thing, when we're going through our darkness, it's often because the light is emergent, right? These opposites are happening all at the same time, and it creates a period of chaos and disruption. And when we look at new paradigms, we have so much conflict in the world that we're contending with. And it's beholden to us to find ways to go to a new level of awareness, to be able to find a reconciliation, to find unity amidst the difference. And we've been doing a lot of talking lately about quantum shifts, right? How energy and consciousness is not a linear kind of transformation. It doesn't undergo linear transformations. Energy builds and builds and builds, and then at some point we pop to the next level of awareness. And this is how nature changes as well. And so there are a lot of thoughts that seem to be jumbled at the moment. I guess, we could easily call today's talk about order and chaos. And by the way, if you guys are putting in comments and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see them. So please go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page if you're gonna, if you want to engage in conversation. But so I think I get to back up a little bit. One concept that we get to look at is how we have maybe what looks like opposing ideas, opposing concepts, And that within that opposition, like that opposition itself keeps us in a duality, keeps us locked into limitation. And if we can rise to this next level, this quantum level of awareness, this next energetic state, then we can see that those two things are a dynamic part of a whole. It's like the yin yang symbol, you know, that we see it as these two intersecting kind of elements. But in actuality, that yin yang symbol is a dynamic motion. It's a movement, and the unity is that motion together. You don't have one without the other, and both of them are part of a whole that are creating this dynamic of life. And where we can find the resolution of opposites is through connection and communication. And an example is people who have differing opinions about something, when they have the opportunity to communicate with one another, then and really become humans with each other instead of combative ideas, then we can reach a deeper sense of understanding and compassion and connection. And so when we look for commonality rather than difference, when we look for connection rather than difference, then there's an opportunity to reconcile these opposing forces. And so this was also coming about as I had a session, I guess almost a week ago, with an energy worker who, who told me that they moved a whole lot of really deep, dark, kind of intense energy in me that had been there for a really long time. It's not where I live from, but it was kind of still ever present, and or still present on a very, very deep level and manifesting physically for me. And it's been interesting since that session to have experienced a lot of emotional disruption, a lot of really old emotions. And this is what we were working on. This is what the session was about. And you know, it's interesting and challenging to recognize that as we transit through our healing, we all know we have to go through it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You got to go through it. Like these feelings resurface, and it's been really, really interesting to be holding these paradoxical feelings, you know, the feelings of hopelessness, resignation, fear, even all these things that were so much a part of my life for so many, many years of my life, having them coming back in or in my experience, re-experiencing them as they are releasing. And the challenge to be present to those feelings, the intensity of those feelings, and what the experience of them is, that they're quite real. And at the same time, to be experiencing these things in the face of an expanded sense of freedom. an expanded sense of presence. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning, Isabel. So good to have you guys here with us. I didn't know if maybe nobody was seeing stuff, so I so appreciate you chiming in. So to be in the feelings and not of the feelings, you know, to be aware of experiencing all these difficult, challenging feelings that feel so real. Good morning, Robin. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. So, you know, just deep despair and hopelessness. And at the same time, knowing academically, I guess, at a certain point, you know, when you're going through those feelings, they feel very real. Knowing that it is old stuff processing through. To be holding those opposites, it requires a willingness to embrace the chaos, you know, because we've been talking a lot about how things fall apart before they can form into something new. And this whole thing was brought about as a session related to the autoimmune stuff that I've been experiencing pretty much for my whole life. And autoimmune conditions are where the system is attacking itself. So it's kind of, you know, self lack of acceptance or self-hatred even, you know, that's making the system be attacking itself. And this stuff is so old, even from before, you know, before being born in many cases. And like I said, it's not where I live, but it's been so deeply entrenched in my body and being that it needed some pretty intense roto-rootering to get it up and out. And the thing is that on its way, it's creating a lot of disruption. And the question is how, when we're going through these periods of experiencing that kind of darkness and also experiencing the light at the same time, like how do we hold that? So Rosalind says, how can one perceive the opposite side of something? When you cut a part of it, you cannot hold two pieces. If you hold one, does a part feel missing? Wow. How do you perceive the opposite side of something? Well, maybe I'm thinking that you're asking, how can you perceive the opposite side at the same time? And that's the paradox. So today was going to be today the talk was going to be holding paradox, and that's really what we're doing, is holding both sides of the coin. And here's the beauty: when you're holding both sides of the coin, what are you holding? You're holding the coin. You're not holding heads, you're not holding tails, you're holding the coin. And I don't know if that is answering your question or your musings there, Rosalind, but that's the idea, is like to be in these experiences of oppression and freedom both at the same time, you know, to be elevating ourselves to another level where the emotions are just aspects of beingness, and that we're not the emotion, for example. So even though there was this deep sense of despair that I was experiencing, I get to not be the despair. And there were also moments of lightness, and in fact, like I could feel the churning of the lightness and the darkness all together, and both at the same time, which is, talk about chaos, talk about confusion. And so um, when we think of identity, and this is a big deal, when we think of identity, we have these ideas of who we are that doesn't necessarily give us space to entertain that we are all of it, that we are all of the opposites. And so we feel happy, we feel sad, we feel smart, we feel stupid, we feel old, we feel young. This is reconciling opposites, holding paradox, that what we are is all of it. We are the coin, not either side of it. And when we are focusing on the sides of the coin, we're missing the bigger picture. And we're missing the essence of who and what we are when we try to put ourselves in those boxes, because we're all of it. We're light, we're dark, we're all kinds of shades of gray and color. And so the way to reconcile opposites is to recognize that those opposites are defining one and the same thing. And then we get to look at what that thing is that is being defined. We get to look at the wholeness. And it's a radical shift of perception to be looking at the unity rather than the separation. This is like the constant theme these days, right? So Rosalind says, patterns are how we react. Memories keep us in those patterns, taking away relationships. What is left? Memories keep us in those patterns. I don't think memories keep us in those patterns. I just have to say that. What I think what happens with our patterns is that maybe lack of awareness keeps us in those patterns. And as we bring patterns to awareness, as we bring patterns to awareness and presence, then we are able to exercise choice more consciously. I don't think it's memories that keep us in patterns necessarily. And when you say taking away relationships, what is left? I'm not sure what you mean by relationships. If maybe if we talk about how we relate to ourselves, I don't know if we are taking away relationships as much as expanding relationship. It's kind of to the two sides of the coin. Are we going to relate to the heads or the tails? It's kind of like it doesn't really matter. Like, we may be very committed. We may be very committed to the head side or the tail side, but the fact is that they're two sides of the same coin. So they're not really so different. They're part of a whole. And Rosalind says, relate to something as being tall or short, compare. Right. So we're comparing things. So if we are not comparing things, how do we, what's left? If we're not judging, essentially, if we're not judging things, what's left? If we're not making comparisons, that's how we discern things, right? That is how we function in the world, is by choosing this or that, right? So that's a great question. What do we, I think that maybe the intention behind comparison is what gets to shift, because oftentimes we're comparing to figure out which is right, which is wrong. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome. Great to have you here with us. We're talking about reconciliation of opposites. So the way to recognize that, the way to reconcile opposites is that opposites are ways for us to see, and when we bring the opposites together, it gives us a picture of the greater whole. And so it's the movement to the greater whole that enables us to bring those opposites together. And it also gives us a greater understanding of the dynamic, like these polarities, that there is a dynamic, it is, if we go back to the yin yang sign, if you look at that, it is in motion. It is a spiral of life, really. And it is in motion. If we look at day and night, it's the cycle of the sun, right? It's the turning of the earth. It's not two things that are separate. It's all part of the same continuum, right? And so if we start entertaining that mode of thought, that it really is all part of the same thing, it's different viewpoints of the whole. It's kind of the story of the blind men and the elephant, and each of them was experiencing a different portion of the elephant, its tail, its trunk, its legs, that their experience of the elephant was very, very, very different from one another. And all those experiences put together came closer to what the truth was of the elephant, right? And so when we operate from the presumption of unity versus the presumption of separation, that may be where we get to that is, I think, where we get to create transformation. All of these dynamics are acting together to create a transformation, to create dynamic flow and change. And the shift of consciousness for humanity is to be assuming unity rather than assuming difference and separation. Actually, difference doesn't go away when we have unity. It just shifts in the way we perceive it. Robin says, I like to add, it depends on the energy of the opposites. Are you wanting to reconcile? Yeah, so reconcile doesn't mean giving in. It means like recognizing that there's that the oneness is existing. And when we can come from that place of oneness, maybe we have a different appreciation of the opposites. I understand what you're saying, Robin. You know, like that there are irreconcilable differences. And I get that. But I just think it's an interesting shift of perception that I think has potential to change everything. I really do. And I don't necessarily know how to get there, but to be holding the paradox, holding the opposites with open hand. And then there's maybe room for possibility that wasn't there before. So the Robin says, so the source is already established. Yeah, and what we're looking to be is, at least I am, more connected to that source. Anyway, I gotta go. I am so grateful to you for joining me in this conversation. I think we get to go more deeply into it. And so much love and appreciation to you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And well, it is confusing, Lisa. We get to be confused together and explore it a little bit more deeply. Good morning, Dido. So glad you joined us. Love to you all. I look forward to seeing you again